Korkenstein, let's open up with the big news. Now, last night on the socials, it was basically posted by everyone that unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on whether or not your glass is half empty or half full on this conversation, Astrobot worldwide as of November 3rd has sold a mere 1.5 million copies. Now, some people are going to be like, oh, no, Boom, that's great. It's a platformer. No one really cares about platformers, so that's wonderful. It didn't cost $500 million to make, so yeah, it's a win. I mean, listen, I just want this to be clear because somebody's going to clip this as they've been doing and trying to make me out to be this monster who hates PlayStation. Astrobot, for me, is one of the highlights of 2024. There's no arguing with it. You're never going to change my mind. I put 40 plus hours. I got every trophy except for one. The last one that I can't seem to get is those master levels, and it's just egregiously hard. So I'm okay with not getting the platinum. I got every trophy but that last master level one that unlocks after you beat the game, and I'm fine with it. There's going to be some free DLC when those levels come out. There's going to be additional trophies. I will go and get those as well. It is one of my favorite platformers in years. It is one of the biggest highlights because there were not many in 2024 for PlayStation. This is definitely one of them. So this is where I get a little bit disappointed with PlayStation Nation. Now, maybe your casual gamer, right? Your Call of Duty player, Korkenstein, your Apex Legends player, your 2K basketball or Madden player or FIFA. Maybe those players don't care about Astrobot because, well, they're casuals and they bought a PS5 because it's a cool brand to be. It's a cool system to have, right? They're still the market leader. They still do great. They spend a lot of money to advertise. So Sony is still doing what they do, right? No issues, no harm, no foul here. But this is where I have to call out the vocal minority of PlayStation people that are on these social media platforms talking about sales, talking about supporting the devs, talking about Game of the Year, Astrobot. And did any of these mofos buy or even play the game? Well, I don't know because most of them have their trophies hidden. They don't have them on public. Like you can go look at mine right now. You can see every trophy that I have. I think I have 6 platinums in total. Whoop-de-doo, right? But I have platinums. And if you want to check what I've done in Astrobot and see whether or not, well, Boom is fibbing or he is, you can go check right now. I got every trophy but one. I bought the game and I'm supposedly an Xbox. How does this happen is the question. How does 62 plus million PS5s that are out in the wild, and it might be more now because obviously you could probably tack on maybe about 1 million because, again, I don't think the PS5 Pro is going to sell. I think that is, we talked about it on Primetime Gaming, that is going to be potentially a PlayStation VR 2.0 deal. I think it's going to sit on shelves. The price is just too egregious. But bringing it back to what did sell, well, we've been told, Korkenstein, more times than I can count on my hands and toes, how many PlayStation 5 consoles have been sold? 62 million, for the love of the gaming gods, right? It's so many. So how does 62 million consoles are out in the open, out in the wild, sold, that both the journalists and the community are touting best console? Look, you see, it's outpacing the PS4, and they only sell 1.5 million copies of one of the best games that Sony has put out in years. You know why? Because it's a farce. Their fandom is a farce, and they play Twitter more than they actually play their consoles, and that is why their trophies are hidden like cowards. Let's get your thought.
Yeah, it's just such a shame too, and I do want to add the caveat too. You know I got my Xbox era shirt on and everything, and I'm an Xbox primarily driven, consumer. But at that point, I loved Astrobot. I had such a fun time with it. I really did dig it. It was such a really cool. I even said it numerous times. It sets the standard. It sets a bar for platformers. I've said it's definitely a reason for Xbox to look into Banjo-Kazooie. But and then we look at these sales, and I mean 1.5 in 9 weeks that's nothing to scoff at, but it's also, like you said, when they're touting they have 65 million PS5s out there, or PS consoles out there or whatever, it's kind of it just reinforces what I've been saying for the last couple of years now, is that exclusives aren't the revenue drivers you think they are. And it's just such a shame too, because this is such a great game that anybody can play, especially if you're somebody that is people say, oh, it's a love letter to platformers, and I said no, it's a love letter to PlayStation.
Indeed.
And it that's what it is. It's history, the IPs, the things that the characters that you grew up with, that's where it's at. But it's definitely not it's definitely not where I don't think the number should be, with how much the game really got hyped up by the media and by other PlayStation bigger accounts, focus counts. It bums me out. Like I said, yeah, it just really bums me out because I loved Astro. I just don't understand why. I mean, maybe it's because they've ingrained, and this is the reason why Jim Ryan and them wanted to switch to live service, or rush out, I would have to say, rush out live service, is because of the exclusives part, where they're, sadly, mine hasn't been turned on since Astrobot, since Astrobot released 9 weeks. And maybe that's why they're looking, hey, maybe we should, switch to live service, where like Microsoft's been doing and, Xbox been doing, to where that's where they're generating the revenue. That's where they're getting their MAUs. It's no longer, people will tout it's about these console sales. That's never been a metric. And this is why Xbox moved away from them, is because it's giving false numbers on how well the company's actually doing and what they're actually offering versus, with their MAU count. And that's the sad part, that people kept focusing on, was console sales. It's not about that anymore. It's about how you can get MAUs up each month, and not only that, keep them spending inside your ecosystem. I know I sound like a broken record. I've said this numerous times on previous podcasts. That's the goal. That's the metric. And exclusives don't really do that unless they're live service. And that's where you're seeing, sadly, Redfall didn't pan out. But I mean, I liked Redfall. I'll be the first to admit it. You could throw those tomatoes at me. I don't care.
It's fine. I put 80 hours into it. I don't apologize for it. I freaking loved it. Yeah. Was it perfect? Not even close.
Oh,
but did I have fun? Yes.
Yeah. It was the bones were there, and it's bums me out that they kind of abandoned it. But yeah, and that's where we're seeing those returns, and that's the focus. And I don't think PlayStation has properly set their consumer base up for that. They doubled down heavily on this big blockbuster single player exclusive narrative games, Hollywood narrative games, and then that's why you're seeing, I think, the Japanese market kind of pull away from them, and that gave them plenty of opportunity. Microsoft saw the door wide open and they jumped right in, and now you're getting Death Stranding on PC and Xbox. You're getting Yakuza, Persona 4, or the Persona series, things like that. So it bums me out, but I mean, the only thing that can really fix this is either somebody at Sony or wakes up, or the media and consumers really start holding them accountable. And you're not, I doubt you're going to see any of those two anytime too soon, sadly, even though they should, because Astrobot's such a great game.
It's a shame. Look, like I said, I'm not overly praising it because I'm trying to get any bonus points with PlayStation fans. People are going to boo me anyway. but I at least played the game. I at least finished the game. I at least have every freaking trophy except one. I put over 40 hours and I loved it. And you know what? It's going to be in my personal top 3 of 2024. And I'm not ashamed or sorry to say that. It is anyone that loves platformers needs to play this game. But more so than that, anyone who was a fan of PlayStation during the first 4 console generations could go and find something that's going to make them just smile. And that's what this game does. You pick up the controller, it's quirky, it's funny, it has a lot of different mechanics. It is their version of a Mario game in its best light. And nobody in PlayStation Nation gave a flying hootenanny about it. And that to me is disgusting, especially when you see, and again, we don't do the names thing here on this channel, but you just have to, I'll say it, and you're like, yeah, that was such and such. They were out here championing this game. And you know what's interesting, Fuzzy Belvedere, is what was the conversation like for Hellblade 2? One of the best graphical games, one of the best stories. They have improved in combat, pacing, graphics, storytelling. But what did we hear? What was the rhetoric from everybody that we're talking about from PlayStation Nation who did not go out and buy Astrobot? Oh, Hellblade 2, it's a flop. It didn't sell more than X numbers. Why aren't we getting the numbers? Did it sell more than 2? Did people play it in Welfare Pass? That was the conversation, right? Well, We're having a conversation right now. Where is PlayStation Nation? So I'm going to hand over you to Mike. I'm going to get your thoughts on this because 1.5, it with 62 plus million consoles in the wild, is not a good percentage.
No. I mean, I got clipped last time when we talked about Astrobot because I said it wasn't for me. I don't understand why people were talking about Game of the Year for a platformer when there have been better platformers in the past, and people were like, "Oh, he's just an Xbot." Yeah. Where's your sales? Where's your engagement? Where's your user count? I guess I wasn't the only one that it wasn't feeling it. When you have more than half of your PlayStation base playing Call of Duty and you want to clip me over Astrobot, yeah, grab that L, grab it and hold it tight. It is what it is. I said it was a great tech demo as far as the first one. It's more of the same. It's great that they expanded on it. I never thought it would be a system seller to begin with. I'm amazed that it's done as great as Ratchet and Clank because of the history and the nostalgia with Ratchet and Clank, but it barely topped it. And in the long scheme of things, I don't think it'll top it overall. But we already know that Ratchet and Clank doesn't have a sequel coming out because the Ratchet and Clank directors are now going to be working on Wolverine, and they had internal documents showing that it didn't meet the metrics that they had hoped.
We actually have a super chat I'll get to in a second that breaks that down specifically, and it makes this particular situation with Astrobot even worse. But please continue.
Yeah, so I'm hoping they clip me again on this. It was an underwhelming game for me. I'm glad that people enjoyed it, but considering 1.5 million out of 62 million consoles, and sure, you could say the same thing about Hellblade. Oh, it didn't do this, it didn't do that. I played it, beat it, got my 1,000 gamer score on the first and the second one. I don't have it on PlayStation because I finished about 70% of it, but it's 1,000 gamer score on Xbox. Astrobot didn't platinum it on PlayStation, but platinum Ratchet and Clank. I think I did it in like less than 6 hours. So it is what it is as far as people want to talk about the length of a game or the replayability. And at least with the timer thing or the speed run stuff, there is some replayability with Astrobot. But I had said all along it probably should have been a pack-in for the PS5 Pro. Maybe it will be at some point, considering those aren't going to be moving that much either. I mean, kudos to the enthusiasts that see the value in that $700 to $800 box, but you can miss me with that. Same thing with Astrobot, but hey, let's see if it gets nominated and wins anything at the Game Awards. I'm pretty sure Keeley, being the PlayStation fan he is, will. As much as they tried to push that game, it didn't reach the numbers that you would think, considering how many people were talking about it. I mean, it barely outperformed Stellar Blade. Maybe it should be on PC. Maybe they would get those numbers because there aren't that many platformers on PC, or at least modern platformers.
Yeah.
And I said that before, and people were like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." Well, I guess I still don't. 1.5 million when you have 62 million consoles out there. We could talk about attachment rate and all that stuff, but it would be better off having that game in PS Plus or packed in with the PS5 Pro. I think you would see a lot more engagement on the game. It amazes me that it even had DLC faster than Spider-Man 2 did, considering the lackluster sales, considering for Spider-Man 2, as far as internal numbers are concerned. It did much better than Astrobot did, but they didn't think it did well enough to warrant them doing, DLC, or maybe they'll do it as standalone, kind of like a Miles Morales type of thing, to hit you over the head for another $50 to $70. But people always used to say, ask for more with Xbox, and we've asked for our platformers, and we've asked for our single player and our multiplayer games of choice. It's time you guys start asking for a roadmap beyond Astrobot. But not surprised it only did 1.5 mil in the 2-month period. I would think that should be a day one type of thing, considering Sonic did it on its first day. Yes, I know Sonic is multi-plat, but it's a PlayStation exclusive. I thought exclusives really mattered and moved the needle, or moved the hardware. Yeah, I guess it doesn't, but it is what it is. But be sure to clip me again, and I'm pretty sure I'll have 100 to 300 mentions about how dumb I am or how salty I am. I'm not salty at all. I mean, my PS5 is a little dusty because since the update for Gran Turismo 7 was that a month and a half ago, I haven't really turned it on. So not getting much out of me for the money I put into it, but oh well, it is what it is.